Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for stopping by again. I got super busy this morning and took a lot more time doing some things than I expected. So I'm going to try to get this out tonight, as I promised I'd have it out on Sunday, and here we are. So let's see if I can get it up fast enough, and YouTube and so forth or whatever, get the job done. I want to talk to you a little bit about where we are. We're at a turning point here. Now, anybody who says, this is it, it's all over with now, we're moving on back to normal, this is not how it works. And I'm an analyst, been an analyst all my life. I tell you, you don't tell the future what it's going to be. It will tell you when it feels ready, when it comes, what it is, and you will deal with it as you have to. Now, the best you can hope to do is to give some general direction, and what is the momentum and what direction are we going in, and what are the various other factors that can intervene, and so on and on and on. I'm not going to go into all that, but there's something I look at every single day of the week, and I spend hours working on it, have been for doing that for many years, decades now. That's what I do. And for a long time, I was paid to do that. I do it for free now, not because I'm doing it for my own purposes. I enjoy doing it because it's what I do. But if I were doing it for somebody else, they'd be paying for it. I've done enough of that for free. No more of that crap. I'm tired of that. But in any event, the fact of the matter is that we're going to look at it from that as a turning point now. And it's very clear. We've got the virus basically under control. Well, to the extent you can say the word control, we're on top of it. It's okay. We're very, very few of serious problems here in terms of hospitalization, and the death rate is very, very low. It's all amongst the unvaccinated, and they're a smaller and smaller portion of the population. So I shouldn't say all with them, but it's predominantly there, as you know. And so we're getting in charge of that. And we have some of the herd immunity effect is, we think, taking place. We'd like to think so, at least. So we're opening up. And as we've discussed in the video earlier, or yesterday actually, we're opening up to people coming in. There are still restrictions and so forth, but that's for a completely different topic. The important thing is that we are opening up at this point. The government clearly has been preparing for some time. And they've had the time to do it, and they have been hard at work doing it. It is very, very evident. I heard bits and pieces about it over the last few months, what they hope to do. And they've done it. They're taking a tour up at the United States now because there's a lot of money comes down here from there, a lot of investment money there. And they had a whole round of talks in Austin and various parts of Texas, talking to groups there. But most recently, New York City, let me see. Yeah, here we go. Stopped by the NASDAQ, stock exchange, and they were very nice about the whole affair. President Cortizo is the head of our delegation, of course. He's got quite a good crew with him, and they are doing the rounds, and they are getting good press. They're getting very good press. And another one, here's the other one that popped up here, if I can ever find it. Okay. There we go. This is President Cortizo, and he's talking to Mike Bloomberg, pretty well-known gentleman in the business and investment community. This sort of meet and greet, so to speak, this visiting and this being publicized, this is important. For the business and investment community, it's just like a little stamp of approval by somebody they respect that goes by them. It's not political, it's business. And they take this sort of stuff seriously. So they say, okay, both of these actions that you just saw are part of reestablishing, and not necessarily reestablishing, but establishing Panama as a country to look at now for reactivation for a growing economy in the future. And they're really moving forward, and they've got a whole pitch. Let me tell you, they have a pitch. They are doing quite a good job of that, from what I can tell and from what I hear. So this is good. This is all intended to bring people back down here who can bring money with them and start businesses and get jobs going again down here that are very important to us, and also bring the conventions down, et cetera, and so forth. Good. Okay, we'll see. But this is what is up, and it is the first step. Well, I'm back in a different shirt. But basically what happened last night was nothing but trouble with the editing software, which is web-based, and then with YouTube, which was a pain in the neck. So the upshot of the whole thing was that I thought I had set aside enough time to get the video done, and indeed I had most of it, I had it done. And then trying to get it edited and up to YouTube turned out into a mild nightmare. Apparently everybody in the planet was decided to post something on Sunday evening. Whatever the case may be, because I have a good connection, there's no question there. It just, it was busy. I just had to give it up. And what you just saw, that much I was satisfied with. I just stopped it there, and I said, I will come back today as I am, and I'll finish it up. So here I am. Now, what I'm trying to get across here, I'm getting to eventually, is that there's this big effort going on to bring the country back and into focus, to the focus of people who have investment money and who want to get things done in Latin America. Now, that's all fine. But we still have the basic problem, which we have the macro market, the macro economy, is doing very well. I mean, the canal is doing marvelously well, and the predictions for the coming year are very, very high, and they don't overpredict; they usually underpredict. And I know there are reasons for that very big jump they expect for next year, some of which I may make a passing mention of tonight. But anyhow, the key point is that that's doing fine. The world's second largest free trade zone is showing some signs of recovery and doing much better. The copper mine is steaming along, and although we're in the midst of redoing the contract, the result will be more money for the government anyhow. So on the major things of this sort, we're doing all right. We're weak on still is construction, and we've got some of the big projects going now, but some of them are being completed. It's just there are more of them that are stuck in various locations. The pandemic did harm things and got some things mixed up in terms of not getting them finished, and then we have to put things back together again. That's happening, but it's just not as quickly as we want. The hospitality business, that's the hotels and restaurants, of course, they're back here, but they're not doing well, particularly the hotels. And the construction business in general is not that good, and so on. We don't have a huge group of people coming down here buying homes or grabbing rentals. That's not yet with us, and it's not unusual. It's not as if Latin America is full of success stories right at the moment. They're not. Now, for the country as a whole, that means that we're doing just fine at this macro level, but we're not doing fine at the micro level. We know that. Which is why it's great that we have a very patient and determined public that is not happy with it and wants progress, but at the same token isn't going to do something stupid, thinking that somehow they'll get it by setting fire to something. So we have a reasonably intelligent polity, they're called, the society, the political society, the people who actually run and vote and take part in community activities here are smart. And they understand the need to cooperate through this period. So they've been very good about it. Now, the outsiders, their opinions have been, you had a really bad setback because you did close down last year, but you've got potential for growth this year and next year even more so. But you've got to be careful. You're still investment grade, and depending on which service you're talking about, you're either one or two levels above not being investment grade. We have come down, as many have, but you're fine. Don't worry about that. As long as you do what you need to do, and their suggestions and recommendations. And this is how they do it. I mean, they're being supportive. At the same time, they're sort of knocking on our door saying, don't forget, you've got stuff that you've got to do differently. We're aware of that. Okay. I think that's very clear. I'm not worried about that particular thing. Behind the scenes, now when I talk to people up in New York particularly, and elsewhere, from Washington and so on, I'm not trying to pretend anything great. I'm not talking to the President of the Federal Reserve or anything of that sort. But I've been in this business for 50-some years, and I did a lot of writing and a lot of work for financial publications when I was up in the north before I came down. And even while I was down here, quite a bit of it, actually. So I do have friends and people, associates, and I've been in the business for so many years that some of these I've actually employed and or trained, and occasionally, once in a while, young men, young women who are now not so young, but have moved on and gotten to in good positions. And I sit and I talk to them. I've been training. I've also tried to expand my network now into other areas, and particularly younger generations, because I think it's very important that they get their feedback and also remind them of the need to open up and their world to their thinking to beyond just their national borders and so forth. Trying to get a picture of how things are shaping up in that regard, trying to ignore the headlines and the screaming and the shouting, because that doesn't really help. What I'm hearing very clearly is that people want Panama to succeed. They very much want it to succeed because, quite frankly, there aren't many success stories right at the moment in Latin America. It's hard to come up with any, to be truthful. There are countries that are holding on and so on, but there's an awful lot of political upheaval going on all over the place. We've got Nicaragua joining Venezuela as the authoritarian state of the month. This sort of nonsense, but it's beyond that. The Peruvian situation is complex. One of the poisons here in Latin America throughout its history has been nations that have been divided between the far right and the far left. That is just, they are like ping pong balls back and forth. Look at Brazil, my lord, and Peru and so on. These are wonderful countries with very intelligent people, but they've gotten themselves caught in this sort of trap. And they need to break out of it if they're going to stabilize and move on. But maybe they're coming to that. We don't know. That's for them to decide. For whatever reason, Panama stands aside from everybody else. And that is recognized by people who deal down here. And they want it to succeed because if we fail, and we aren't holding up our part of the bargain, it gets very dark. And this is a good center location for helping support others. And so we're getting a lot of that coming down, a lot of center people choosing to have offices here to do their work regionally and so on. So in a nutshell, people are on our side, and they're very, very supportive. So that even though Colombia, for example, and Panama have exactly the same rating with the agencies, the risk rating, that in turn determines what interest you pay on loans, we still have much lower rates that we pay than they do. And yet, we had this severe drop in GDP. It sounds, last year, but during the pandemic, it sounds so awful, and yet at the same token, it's not. It is set up in such a fashion purely by coincidence, because God knows what tomorrow holds for us, or a year, or 3 months from now, or a year from now, whatever. But where we're headed in great part now, I think, in my mind, is toward a stronger than expected rebound. That our strengths and what sets us apart from others is already becoming more and more obvious. I think some of that stuff with Bloomberg and NASDAQ, whatever, these are just a few things. They're just signals, so to speak. People are taking notice, and the government does have a smart pitch that is going out offering to really work with people to get things done. I think we're in that mode so we can really, really grow from it. We'll see. But I think that even without that, we'll recover. Most people agree, yes, by 2024 or 2023, we should be back to where we were. Well, I think we can get there earlier than that. It just depends. It's all in the future, and we will have to see. But we're really, really, to me, this is when you buy, not 5 years from now or 3 years from now. Now, this is when you invest. I should put it that way. Buy is, or rent or whatever is not so much the issue. I mean, we still have very good rentals here. It's not like we have, don't listen to them. They give the impression that we're having all sorts of people rolling into town looking for rentals and purchases. It's not happened yet. We're just now opening up, and people are beginning to come down, but we have a long ways to go, and we've got a lot of places still, a lot, in terms of inventory for sales and for rentals. So that in the city, you can find very good apartments for $15 to $100 and $1,800 and so on. Very nice ones. You can get more modest ones for $1,300, $1,400. It depends on what you want. But we're not. It's not necessary to pay $3,000 or something like that. You can if you want to, and if you do it well, you can get quite a place for that much money. But we still have that, and we still have a lot of people who need to sell. Now, we've worked very hard here to stabilize this with the mortgages, with the banks, and everything else, so that people aren't ripping out their hair and screaming and shouting in the streets. But there are definitely people who need to sell, and so they are going to be eager to entertain you when you come, and so forth. It's a good time. That's my attitude. This is much of the time has been in Panama's growth. I have said, this is a good place to live. I don't invest so much as live here. If you're investing your life, that should be the first priority, and that remains the case right now today. You're investing your life, not your money, but your life. In the process, however, it isn't hurt to look at it from the longer run. An inexpensive rental now, you lock in now and you get it, you're a good tenant and everything else. You can, as time goes by, you find that if you're a good tenant, you stick around, you can remain in the same place, and often without much of an increase in rent, if any, for some time, just because it's stable. And expatriates are known for bouncing around like ping pong balls too, so stability is much appreciated. And getting along well with your landlord is always a positive. Not always easy and not always doable, but it's it definitely works in your favor. And from the purchasing viewpoint, I still say you need to be very cautious and very careful about what you're buying and where it is and so on. And don't make an automatic assumption that because you're near the water, this is great, or because you're way up in the mountains, it's great, or in the city for that matter. You need to slow down a bit, so to speak, take your time and look past all the glitter that there is to be seen. Because what I see coming is winter up north. And I am aware of the fact that in Europe and so on, right now, globally, there are serious concerns about what's going to happen with liquefied natural gas, LNG, in this coming winter, because that's used for heating purposes by a lot of people in this world. Now, in North America, it's not such a big deal because they produce their own. But in Europe, for example, and China and a number of other places, they depend on importing LNG. And there's not enough, guys. If we have a very, very remarkably mild winter, which would be fine as far as I'm concerned, but if we did, then maybe it'd be okay. But if we have a normal winter, or God forbid, a cold winter up there, it's not going to be good. You're going to have a lot of people who are upset, who are very frightened, who prices will rise because it's not just residential heating, it's businesses and their operation as well. If LNG becomes a major problem, and this is just one thing that can go wrong, okay? I haven't even mentioned flu in this thing. But if that is a major issue, this is the time of year when people come down anyhow, trying to get away from the cold weather and everything, with all the anxiety and all the concerns and all the screaming and shouting that's going on up there, and then on top of it all, they're cold, and their price of heating is way high, it can justify getting in a plane and coming down. This could be a major moment for us. We can blow it because, as we know, as we've discussed, the changes to the Friendly Nations visa and so forth there, these are things still under discussion. The regulations for how this operates is still to be worked on. Friendly Nations, I don't expect that to change. They made a mistake and that's it. That would be difficult for them to change immediately. The discussion of whether or not to limit tourist visas to 90 days instead of 180, which affects snowbirds who come down for 4 to 6 months. And I have raised this issue. They keep forgetting about it and say, these guys come down, they buy a place, and they come down every winter. But they don't want to become residents. They just want to come down here and stay in the place that they own, and then they try to rent it if they can when they're out of the country. And all of a sudden, they had to be gone in 90 days. I said, come on, you got to think this through. So I've been trying to get this message into the right hands. I'm not the right one necessarily to carry the message. You have to find the right person to carry the message. And a foreigner isn't always the right one, and especially, an expat with a YouTube channel and everything else. I don't care at all about getting credit for anything. All I do is I pass stuff on. And I hope somebody listens to it, and it helps them in focusing on what they're doing. But I mean, we've got all this happening, and it's clearly not working yet. And people are concerned, so it's still in flux. I don't even try to guess that all this is going on, but I'm saying that there's a very real possibility that we are going to have a wave come down here in 2, 3, 4 months, depending on the winter. And if it's a bad winter, it could be a great one for us. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't count on it, and you don't come down here and buy a place expecting to flip it in 3 months' time for a big profit. It is not how it's going to work in this case. But prices will go up. But I wouldn't, not for flipping purposes. I just don't think it's worth people's time, given the unrealistic expectations they normally have when they do that, doubling, tripling, and all this. No, it's not like that. But it is an opportunity to get a less expensive place if you get here before the icy winds and the snow and the heating bills start adding up. I think so. That's a possibility. So this is unusual for me in 17 years. I rarely ever mention anything like this because I know, as an analyst who's been an analyst for over 50 years in international economics and so forth, not in some sort of university sense, but in the nitty-gritty of actually making things work in developing nations. This is where I spent the bulk of my life. This is a very possible result coming down the road here. So we'll see. I don't know if it will or not, but I wanted to share that with you, and I will have more to share as things go on. Thanks so much. And by the way, I will be sending out another report from Panama here, maybe short, maybe long, whatever, in the next few days this week. I've got, I think, about 80% of it done. And you know me, I'll get it out when I do, but it's coming, and if you're subscribed at retirementwave.com, no problem. It will get automatically sent to you. If not, I will raise it here, and if you come in and happen to see that particular video and so on, you can pick it up there, and I'll run that for a couple of videos and so on to catch as many people as I can who are interested in it. That's often why people come to my site, and that's why they hang out here sometimes, are those letters. So be it. Thank you very much for your patience, and I look forward to seeing you again.